Okay, let's talk about one of the most influential and maybe one of the most controversial self-help books ever written, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. The question is it a genuine blueprint for success, or is it something else?
So picture this. It's 1937, right in the middle of the Great Depression. People are desperate, and then this book comes out with this incredible promise, a secret formula for success. It was exactly what everyone wanted to hear, and boy did it sell. We're talking over 60 million copies since then.
And this gets us to the book's wild, provocative claim, the central idea. Can you actually think your way into being rich? According to Napoleon Hill, the answer was a loud and clear yes.
And millions of people have absolutely sworn by this philosophy. Hill's core message is right there in that quote. The starting point of all achievement is desire. For so many, it's become this timeless guide for achieving anything, not just making money. But is it really that simple?
All right, so what is this big secret that's had people hooked for so long? What's the actual blueprint that Hill lays out in the book?
So the core premise is this idea Hill called transmutation. He argued that your thoughts, if you combine them with a really obsessive burning desire, can literally be transformed into their physical equivalent. Money, success, you name it. It's that famous line, what you can conceive and believe, you can achieve. And what's surprising is that this isn't just some vague, be positive advice. As you can see here, he lays out 6 very specific, very concrete steps. You have to set a precise dollar amount, figure out what you'll give in return, pick a hard deadline, and make a plan. Then, and this is key, you write it all down and read it out loud, twice a day, every day. The whole point is to create what he called a white-hot state of mind around that goal. This message of extreme personal responsibility is a huge part of its appeal. It's telling you, the reader, that you are the architect of your own future, that nothing on the outside can stop you. It's a really empowering idea, and honestly, a very American one. But, and this is a big but, this is where the story takes a really sharp turn. Because behind this inspiring message, there's a deeply controversial story about the author himself. Yeah, so modern research has started to just completely dismantle the myth of Napoleon Hill. And this quote from Bankers Anonymous is pretty blunt, but it reflects what a lot of researchers are now saying. The man behind the message was, in their words, a complete con artist. And the list of accusations against him is, well, it's long. Researchers have found this pattern of alleged fraud that just followed him his whole life. We're talking passing bad checks, creating fake charities, even securities fraud. According to a lot of accounts, the guy was pretty much constantly on the run from the law. And this one is probably the biggest bombshell of all. The entire origin story of the book, the idea that Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men in history, personally hired Hill for this huge 20-year project, is now widely seen as a total fabrication. There's just no evidence Hill ever even met the guy. So this discovery just throws a huge wrench in the works, right? It forces us to ask this really critical question. If the author's story is a lie, could his principles still have some truth to them? Can you separate the message from the messenger? And that's where the debate lands today. It's just as polarized. On one side, you have proponents who see it as this timeless guide to mastering your own mind, but on the other, you have critics who see it as a dangerous philosophy that completely ignores all the real-world barriers that can get in the way of success. I mean, this Goodreads review pretty much captures the heart of that critique. The question becomes, is it really fair to say that if you fail, it's just because you didn't want it badly enough? Opponents call this victim blaming, arguing that it totally dismisses systemic things like the economy, race, gender, or just plain old luck. And that brings up another major issue. Hill presents his ideas with all this scientific-sounding language. He talks about thought vibrations and connecting to infinite intelligence. But from a scientific view, there's just no evidence for any of it. It's often just dismissed as mystical pseudoscience. He even says you have to suspend your disbelief for it to work, which critics point out makes it a system you can't even question. If it doesn't work, it's your fault for not believing hard enough. But Here's a modern twist. Neuroscientists have actually shown that when you intensely focus on a specific, visualized goal, it actually changes your body's physiology. It can prime your brain's circuits for action, which makes you more likely to notice opportunities and to, well, succeed. So while Hill's mystical explanations might have been nonsense, his practical steps might have accidentally stumbled onto some real neuroscience. So after all of that, weighing the powerful blueprint against the fraudulent author, the pseudoscience against some surprising neuroscience, where does that leave this giant of the self-help world? So what do people think today? Well, if you look at over 370,000 ratings on Goodreads, the division is crystal clear. As you can see here, a whopping 76% of readers give it 4 or 5 stars. But there's a small, very vocal group that reads it poorly, which just shows how polarizing this book still is. I think this review just perfectly sums up how a lot of readers feel. They can see the batshit crazy parts, like sex transmutation and infinite intelligence, but they still find real, actionable wisdom in that core message of desire, planning, and just plain persistence. And in the end, that's really the paradox of Think and Grow Rich, isn't it? It's a book full of contradictions. It's a practical guide from a potential liar, a philosophy that is at the same time deeply inspiring and maybe even a little insulting. So that leaves us with the final question. Is this book a powerful tool for success that, despite all its serious flaws, still holds timeless wisdom? Or is it a dangerous piece of propaganda that just sells a false promise? After all this, the final verdict is really up to you.